Hi everyone, I'm Ryan from the San Francisco Fire Risk Project. You've probably seen me around because I've been with the Civic Hack Night since November. Kind of after the elections, I felt like I needed to do something, but I wasn't really sure what. So I just kind of started here and I found myself enjoying just attending the meetings. So honestly, like I wasn't sure if we'll be ready to present tonight, but we made a lot of progress in the last few weeks, and I thought it was worth sharing with everybody. So Hannah will give us background a little bit. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I should have mentioned Sanat and June was the original founders of this project, and I kind of took over for them since last year. Yep.
Hey, guys. So first of all, we just wanted to talk a little about why fire risk. So this is a quote from a civil grand jury report last year around what's happening with fire in San Francisco. And specifically what we've identified is the question of prioritization. So obviously the fire department and other departments in government, there are a lot of factors they have to contend with when they're looking to prevent fires. But specifically, inspections and corrections of violations within a certain amount of time is one place where you can start in trying to help improve processes to prevent fire. So a little more qualitatively, I know there are a lot of data scientists in this room right now, so we're not trying to state a correlation necessarily, definitely not a causation right now with this analysis. But just looking at this intuitively, we can see that fires don't happen at the same rate in every neighborhood. And specifically, neighborhoods are at the most risk for fire, and especially for fires that are potentially more catastrophic for people's lives. Specifically, this is calling out like whole building fires, tend to happen in neighborhoods that have really limited resources. So along with trying to think about like what can fire departments do, we can think about what can we do to empower community advocates so that they have also more resources to combat fires in their neighborhoods, prevent them from happening. So that leads us to our goal, which is to predict and map properties with the highest fire risk and inform fire department processes and empower community advocates with that mapping. And we have an awesome precedent that we're working from. So in the Atlanta Firebird project, they created a predictive model using a ton of different data sources, and they came up with a model of the specifically commercial buildings most likely to have a fire with a 71% true positive rate, looking at simulations of past data. And they also provide a lot of reproducible research tools. There are some differences for us because specifically we're not just looking at commercial buildings, we're looking also at residential. And then Stephen's going to speak more to exactly how we're mobilizing this precedent, what we're doing differently, how we're getting and using this data.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the work that we've done so far. So with machine learning problems, usually there's two steps. Oh, yeah, 2 minutes. One step is like getting your data sets together, and that's something that we've done a lot of. And then the other step is picking a machine learning algorithm and kind of like fine-tuning it, and maybe even going back to this first step, and it could be like a cycle. But a lot of the work, as I've said, is just with the data set part. And what we started with were two data sets, both from data.sfgov.org. So we have the property tax rolls, which tells us about all of the different properties in San Francisco. It tells us things like how old is the property, what is the value of the property, where's the property. So we're merging this with fire incidence data, which lists out like all of the fire incidents. And one thing I want to note on this slide that I thought was pretty interesting is a fire incident isn't necessarily a fire. Like when I first looked at like description fire incidents, I thought, oh, like buildings catching on fire. But this could actually be like a false alarm. It could be like sprinklers going off. It could be something that doesn't really cause a lot of damage. So the first step of this was just filtering the data. So we wanted to filter all that out and just get data that was actually like fires. Thanks. So I'm going to talk about the features that we use so far. So as I said, property tax rules have a bunch of features about all of the properties in San Francisco. So in this left table, we have all of the features that we're using. As it turns out, one kind of interesting problem is that property tax is not at the address level, it's at like a unit level. So let's say we have a condominium. There will be a separate record for each unit of this condominium. So we had to roll this data up and group it by address. So that's what this second thing is representing. And then in order to actually merge the data, we had to, the approach that we took was splitting addresses into, like segmenting them into start number, end number, street name, and street suffix. One thing that I didn't realize before I started this project was that there's actually like address ranges. And I actually walk past one of these every single day on my way to BART. But you don't just necessarily have 123 Main Street. You could also have 123 through 127 Main Street. So this is the joining step. So this is mostly what we did. We don't have the year part yet, but we're going to add that. So if we find a fire, like if we find a match between an address here and an address here, we join them together into this data set that we actually use through the machine learning. So there's 2 additional fields on this data set, whether it had a fire or not, and then the year of the fire. So we haven't really done that much with the machine learning part, but this is pretty much just like a boilerplate machine learning approach. So one thing that the Atlanta group did, and we're modeling our work after their work. So they found really good results with SVMs. So we're going to start with that. And then also they split their training and test set by year. So they took the 2011 through 2014 data and they used it to train. And then they took the 2015 data and they used it to evaluate their model. So I'm going to let Ryan wrap this up.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. So yeah, the next steps are, we had kind of a milestone last week where we finally got the first iteration of our model. So we have an address and we can spit out a fire score. We're not sure of the accuracy yet, so we have to really kind of test it out from this point. And yeah, so we've been testing it this upcoming weeks. We also need help with visualization. And the plan was to kind of use the data and make an address searchable map so that you'd be able to put in your address and then, maybe see your neighborhood, like is your neighborhood high risk or low risk? And, this is something good to know. And also, yeah, we're going to need the help of the fire department. And this has been the biggest challenge so far because, we can do only so much like by modeling after Atlanta because there are things different about the city than what they did over there. And their model, because the scope of the project was much bigger, so we're starting very small, but we're hoping to increase, the robustness of it as time goes on. So yeah, right now our needs are, we need data scientists and analysts to help with the data. We're looking to improve the quality as well as add more attributes to our data set that'll help improve their accuracy. We're going to need, like I mentioned, we're going to need help with the visualization part. And, oh yeah, this is pretty much the same slide as the last one. Yeah, except that, yeah, it's in the form of needs. So, yeah, so that's it. And thank you.
Great project, I love it. My question is about your end user. Who is the focus end user? Is it the fire inspector, the person in the city, someone in local government?
Oh, that's a very good question because that's what we ask every week. So initially, so going kind of way back to the early stages of the project, like I mentioned, we've had some issues trying to contact the fire department because whenever we would mention it, I think there's two problems. One is that they have kind of a bureaucratic system there, and they're not really they might not be too open to working with outside organizations, especially because they're under fire from like a lot of the recent events you might imagine. So we have to be very, very careful with that, how we handle that. But the other part is that we're looking to make a public-focused prototype, just so we have something to show, and maybe that'll give us a better case for getting their input. And at the same time, we can also serve the public that way, because like knowing how risky your area is, I think is something pretty useful. And there's nothing else out there right now, at least in this area. So. Okay.